I just want to start really by asking you about the last sort of 6 to 8 months as someone in your position who's responsible for the day-to-day running of a football club. Just how difficult has this time been for you and for Lincoln City?
Yeah, incredibly difficult. I think, first and foremost, what everybody wants in any organisation, any club, any business is certainty to plan from. And I think, with certainty, you can make certain decisions. And the hardest thing that has been, whilst managing the pandemic and trying to oversee the football club through this period, is just that we're living in huge times of uncertainty. From fans being in stadium to not. The recent setbacks that we've had in that area. It's just been very difficult to put a business plan together and steer the ship, throughout this time. And I think, for lower league football clubs, League One and League Two in particular, you obviously know how important matchday revenue is to the football club, not just the gate receipts, everything that goes with it, from secondary spend, retail, and of course then the wider community impact that our match days have.
And just touching on that wider community, anyone that's been to Sincil Bank and Lincoln City will know that the football club is in the heart of the city, and it is just that, isn't it? Metaphorically speaking, obviously it's the heart of the city, but also quite literally it is right in the centre of the city and is a focal point to so many people and so many businesses.
Yeah, this has been our home for over 120 years. We're a town centre location, right in the middle of the heartbeat of the community. Our stadium doors are, 200 yards from the high street. So, by locality, we are literally at the heart of the city and everything that goes in and around that. And, of course, our match days have a huge impact on that. First of all, our local residents, who are great supporters and great advocates of the football club. They've been great supporters, in particular in recent times. Our average attendance over the last 4 and 5 years has risen from, a 3,000 average to over 9,000 average attendances. Last year we had an average of 900 away fans attending games. That's brought on by League One football. So, our whole impact and that whole ecosystem and how, Lincoln looks on a match day, not just from from food or from pubs point of view, the whole high street is impacted by a Lincoln City match day, and effectively in recent months that's just been wiped straight face off the face of the earth.
And there are two main elements that are sort of being impacted. You have just touched on it there, but there's obviously the impact that football behind closed doors is having on the local area and local businesses who may rely on matchday income. There's also the social impact of those people that rely on football for, their mental health or to combat loneliness, for example. Just starting with the economic impact. I know obviously you released an impact study earlier this year that showed some remarkable stats of how businesses benefit from Lincoln City match days. Are you able to sort of share any of these figures or summarise, what that report found? I think I read that one business had an increase in between 200 and 300% of trade on a match day, for example.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. So, in our locality, there are a number of industries. You've got from the corner shop, the local chip shop, equally pubs and restaurants, and then, of course, the general high street and retail. And what we do know from our fans and from our match day is around 28% of our home fans come from more than an hour and a half away. So effectively their behaviour generally is that of a day tripper. So somebody coming, to the city, similar, as I said earlier, 900 away fans on average, coming into Lincoln. So, first and foremost, we're looking at over 2,000 people, on a Lincoln City match day coming from outside of the city into the city, for as part of the match day. And yes, the match day might be the prime aims of or the prime reason why they're coming to Lincoln, but equally what that does have is their whole match day experience and their whole match day events impacts on various different areas. So like you said earlier, the 300% rise in the local chip shop. Equally we've got other chains where they see 100% increase in trade on match days, and even some of the smaller outlets are still seeing a 60-70% increase of footfall and trade on our match days. And I think that's the, in order to be able to quantify that, you just look at the spend that those businesses will have lost from match days, and the turnover that has been lost because of that. And it's quite frightening to think, and impossible to quantify. But you only have to do the maths, off what a general store would take or what a chip shop would take, and multiply that, and you can start to see the impact that will have. And I think this is where, when you are a town centre football club and you are, rooted in the centre, I think that's where our impact is of course going to be magnified. Looking at our home fans, so even our home fans that do reside and do come from the local area, their match day has a ritual, it has a routine. It might start off in the local cafe, maybe a couple of pubs as part of that, and various different kind of routines that fall, eating post game in any of the local restaurants. So it's clear that whilst Saturday 3 o'clock kickoffs, and fans come into the stadium, that's what we obviously all think about. But the activity prior to and post game is been lost equally as much as having 9,000 fans in the stadium every other week.
And you mentioned attendances there. If you look at Lincoln City specifically, in recent years, as a club, it's gone from being a National League club with maybe a small following to now, competing at the top end of League One. With that, obviously, naturally comes a rise in attendances, more people around on a match day, a bigger away following, as you say. Just how much has the success on the pitch positively impacted the local economy?
Well, from the economic impact report, you can see obviously the rise in turnovers and the the huge gains that happen as part of that course. But you're absolutely right to point across the city we've increased the average attendance by 300%. So what has grown is that secondary spend, that footfall, people getting involved within their as part of their journey, from home, wherever that may be, into the stadium. And I think that's where you start to understand that whole financial ecosystem and what a match day looks like to a fan, and ultimately how that impact of that match day has been lost. The focal point is the match day, but everything that comes on the back of it, it is secondary, but is an important part of the economy. And I think what we've got to do and what we'll continue to do is work hard with the local business owners. And on our doorstep, we have big multinational chains that employ a large number of Lincoln people. Equally, we have sole traders and small businesses, and they're all really important and equally as important to the overall, first of all, match day experience of the Lincoln City fans, but equally that wider economy, as an employers of Lincoln people, and equally as business owners. This is absolutely integral to the whole ecosystem of the city of Lincoln. We're a small city, 100,000 people, live within the city and within the city walls. We have 15,000 students every year that attend the top 25 University of Lincoln. So that whole network and that whole matrix of people, all spans from and all starts from Lincoln City, and then is multiplied by obviously Lincoln City being a successful football club, which we've fortunately been over the past few years, and having managed to get attendances up to that 9,000 average mark. It's really important for the future of the football club. And it's really important for the future of the city that we continue to keep those numbers as high, just so we can continue contributing to the overall economy.
And if you then look to the social impact that that it's having at the moment, football, like many things, it is so important to so many people, isn't it? Obviously, we've looked at how it's affecting people in a business sense, but from a mental health perspective or a loneliness perspective, I know a recent study by Mind showed that more than half of adults and 2/3 of young people, are suffering with their mental health at the moment, given the past 6 to 8 months. You just can't underestimate the impact that, the current situation and lack of football and lack of, getting out and about on that Saturday afternoon, you can't underestimate the impact that may be having on people either, can you?
No, it's exactly that. A match day and what that brings to people. It's often a release. It's often part of that whole social calendar. A lot of what goes on, is anchored based on those match days. And over the course of the end of last season and the start of this, naturally, our teams have been getting on the phone to supporters, speaking to people. And what's really interesting is we've got season ticket holders at Lincoln City that have sat next to people for the last 12, 15 years. And they know each other by first name, and they know each other because they sit next to each other and have done for the last few years, or even for the last 10 plus years. But other than that, that's all that they know each other. So there's been some real interesting stories of our fans getting in touch saying, I know data protection, I know I can't speak, but I've sat next to this person for so many years, and I just want to know if they're okay. I know before the season was suspended, they were just telling me they were having a difficult time with X, Y, and Z, and it's stories like that on an individual level, will go ripple through the whole football community. That's not special to Lincoln City. That is every single stadium in every single city, in town across the football community. And it's examples like that that have just been lost from that social calendar. And the impact that has on people and the impact that has on our fans is huge. We liken football to a religion, and I'm not for one moment saying that it is, but it is just such an important part of a week or of a month or of someone's calendar, and that be it that release, be it that interaction, and we might look at the extremes and we talk about people that it's their only social interaction of the week. First and foremost, there are people out there and that's it, but it's not just that. It's people that are working in 9-to-5 jobs. It's the opportunity to see their friends and their mates. It's that social space that they have for a release at the end of a tough week. And whilst I follow, and the digital streaming platform is excellent and is a really good it's making the best of a difficult situation, it's not the same as sitting in the stands and the smell of Bovril and the onions on the burgers and just having that interaction with people, people nodding their head to each other that they don't even know each other's names, but they've seen each other for years and years. It's those soft social interactions that as human beings we all rely on heavily, and we all need, and like I keep saying, that has just been completely lost, given that match days now take place behind closed doors.
And you say you've touched on so much there, but as well as anyone, especially having previously been involved in a community trust yourself, just how much football is more than the 90 minutes on the pitch and the impact it has off the pitch, whether that be with these supporters and season ticket holders off the pitch, or just generally in its local communities off the pitch with the local people. Again, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but you can't underestimate the impact that football clubs have away from the 90 minutes off the pitch. They are vital to their communities, aren't they?
Yeah, and one thing that we are very proud of, and we should be very proud of, is the community trusts that are attached to all 72 EFL clubs. The work that they do week in, week out is phenomenal, and ultimately that's skilled and dedicated practitioners that are delivering various interventions, various programs, in order to help and benefit the community. But the multiplier and the thing that is able to break down barriers is that relationship with a professional club. Is that Lincoln City badge in Lincoln, or that Doncaster Rovers badge in Doncaster, or the Sheffield United or Wednesday badges in Sheffield. They're the things that break down barriers and help us reach, real difficult areas. To give you quick examples from previous projects I've been involved in, we know that, men's health is a real difficult area, and in particular mental health. And we've seen from projects in the past where we've had 300, 400, 500% increases in people engaging with, say, mental health specialists, or just looking at GP for referrals when they first engaged through their football club. So a lot of football clubs now have drop-in centres on match days, health practitioners on site. We've seen a number of kind of fit fan schemes, going over recent years where fans collectively have lost hundreds if not thousands of stone collectively between them. So it's those elements as well. It's not just there's a number of prescribed areas and a number of areas that very dedicated and focused intervention, and a lot of that work has had to be wound back in these difficult times. Equally, there is the informal relationships and the informal elements that happen in and around the match days. Just the conversations in the fan zones over a pint or a soda water before a game, or just that community feeling that you get on an away day, where at Lincoln City. And a story that I'm really proud of that happened at Lincoln City was there was a gentleman that had his seat in a certain area of the stand and has had his seat for a number of years, and sadly he passed away. And one day his widow saw the season ticket card sat on the shelf and wondered what this match day was all about, and decided that she'd attend the match day. And the group of fans around her that attended that day kind of tapped her on the shoulder and went, excuse me, who are you? This is Bill's seat, and we've not seen him for a while. And that was the first time that they got to know her or him and that story. And what's quite interesting is that's a new relationship that's being built up, because that lady now comes to 5 or 6 games a year. She gets to meet and engage with those fans, and they've kind of adopted her as part of this process. And this is someone that had never been to a football game, isn't a football fan, frankly doesn't really care or even know about the result or what Lincoln City is doing. But it's that power of community that is so important. And football fans are truly special and spectacular people. What they do for their communities and how they engage and how they work with each other. I'm just so proud to be part of a football club, and so proud to be associated with fans that do some special and spectacular things. And I think that's the thing that has been lost, the most, that interaction and that ability and that special things that fans do for each other, for their communities. Home fans and away fans that mix so beautifully well on most match days. That has just been completely lost, while we're playing behind closed doors.
You mentioned a few there yourself, but I think last year over 850,000 people took part in programmes delivered by EFL clubs under the Trust umbrella, whether it be in education, health and wellbeing, mental health, physical activity, the fit fans, as you mentioned. Obviously this is an extreme, but if you take these football clubs away, and if we start to lose these football clubs, the impact of that for these 850,000 people is almost unthinkable, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Right, Abby, and I think this is where, of course, we're very proud of our match days, and the core product and the core reason is football and 90 minutes on a Saturday. But what that generates and the things that come off that are absolutely essential to the fabric of all our communities. The level of intervention and the level of work that goes on in our communities by our community trusts. Without that work and without that reach and without that engagement, our communities will be a far poorer place. That is for sure. We are, and we live in times, where unfortunately, a lot of people have fallen on hard times. There are troubles. There are areas of difficult, of high deprivation, and we can just see from the campaigns, for example, what Marcus Rashford is working and campaigning so avidly hard on at the moment. And it's areas like that where football clubs do get involved at a local level. You might not see it on national news. It may not make the headlines because it's Lincoln City or Burton Albion or Rochdale or Accrington Stanley. But in our communities and in those communities, there is a great deal of critical work going on, and that we've got to protect. That we cannot lose over everything and anything. It is so important that work continues to happen, and ultimately that is part of this whole football, the financial ecosystem of football. Our match days, our events and our activity fundamentally enables that to happen, and that is something that we've got to protect and work so hard to protect, throughout the many challenges that we as the football market faces in the next few months.
And obviously, as you mentioned there, central to all of that is the football club. Just again, going back to Lincoln City specifically, yes, people may say there are bigger things than the survival of a football club at the moment, but for a club like Lincoln that is over 120, 130 years old, you may not be able to answer this, but how do you make sure that it survives and that it is successful beyond the pandemic that we're currently facing, whenever that may be? How do you ensure its safety and survival?
I think first and foremost, we've as a football club that's 136 years old, as the current custodians, we absolutely feel that pressure, and we absolutely have to make sure this football club survives. And success for us right now, isn't about winning trophies It isn't about 3 points on a Saturday. It has to be first and foremost that we survive this pandemic, and that we ultimately get to the other side of this, and are able to continue playing such an important part in our community. So first and foremost, we've got to have a real focus on what success looks like, and success ultimately has to be survival. What I'd hope is that our relationship with the fans, the good work that we've been doing within the football club over the last few years, if we do earn the right to survive this, then we come out of it and we are in a good place. Ultimately, the sporting element is absolutely critical, and we cannot and will not ever lose focus on that. But I think we've got to make sure that we have a real understanding of the hierarchy of importance right now, and making sure that this football club is still here for many more fans and many more generations to enjoy has to be top of the agenda, and everything is a distant second and third and fourth and so on. Our focus is on that, and we like to think that we've done a good job over the last few years, and we are in a reasonable place, but there is no doubt we are going to need support and assistance. This is a journey that needs to be taken. Clubs being self-sustainable is absolutely critical and is important, and we're signed up to that more than any other club. But ultimately, we've fallen on difficult times, as have many of the 72, and with assistance and with support, that is a journey that we want to go on together, and we can get there. There is an absolute appetite to do that. But with this, we just need some support at this moment in time. We need the help to get out of this hole. We need help and support. But with that, we absolutely, we work to the mandate of protecting these clubs, not just for the next 5 years, for the next 25, 30. Lincoln City needs to live to be 236, not just 136. And that's our job right now.
And finally, I know you've covered it. Don't want you to repeat yourself, but if you could just summarise genuinely, just how crucial do you believe that the football club could be in getting local businesses and the town back on its feet?
Yeah, that and I think it goes back to the point that Lincoln City, we place ourselves at the heart of the community, both in our work and equally by location, and our influence and our impact is absolutely critical. We don't just have the sporting element, we don't just have the health and well-being element, we don't just have the social aspect, we don't just have the economic impact. If you actually look at the matrix and the components that actually build up around this, we're not just like any other business in the city. We're not just a sporting organisation. We're a blend, and we're a mixture of both, and that's ultimately the fabric of the EFL. Clubs embedded in their community. It is Saturday at 3:00. It is the match days, but it's everything that comes off off the back of that, and I think that's the thing that we have to protect most as we look to manage the pandemic, and we look to survive beyond this. It's Saturday at 3:00, and it's everything else that goes with it.